share this. Did you guys hear about the Thundercats Roar garbage going on?
Oh God, no! What now?
Oh no, yeah. I had seen something about it, but I didn't.
Is that still a thing?
Yeah, they've aired two episodes, and they did a crossover on Teen Titans Go.
Ugh, God.
So the thing is, they did that horrible commercial for it with little, snowflake millennial boy with his man bun or his little pebbles thing on top of his head, talking about how amazing this cartoon was going to be. And the hilarious thing about it was nobody making that thought that this was ridiculous. That's the most surprising thing. Like, they literally thought that people were going to love this, and it's the most ridiculous thing in the world. This is a scene from that, but this is the designs of the Thundercats Roar. That's ridiculous. That's unacceptable in every way. And that was my first popular video, my first video that went viral, talking about how ridiculous this whole thing was. And I'll have to share that video again, but it was nonsense. So everybody knew it was nonsense since they did that, and people were thinking, are they even going to go forward with it? But Cartoon Network kind of had to, because they had egg on their face if they didn't, and they were going hard and trying to shut everybody down who was daring to criticize it. Then you had some people coming out who worked on it saying, this is a really good cartoon. You guys are stupid. You need to give it a chance. And this is another one of those things. If this is something you defend, then I don't need to hear any more of your opinions. I know I've got my assessment of you. I don't need to hear anything else you think about anything. If this is something you decide that's worthy of defending, that's ridiculous. So they've aired two episodes. You'd think they would air a lot more by now, but they're trying their best to make this a thing so they can gain fans. They did this crossover with Teen Titans Go, and this was a legit scene. They had the real Lion-O come in, so it shows somebody there can actually draw the real deal. And he's talking I think the Teen Titans showed him the series or something. He says, "It is I, Lion-O. You've shown me that Thundercats Roar. It's a worthy successor, and anyone who says otherwise, you ready? Has a poop mouth with poop opinions."
Yeah, I saw this on Twitter.
This is the level of intellect that these people have.
God.
Well, you sure told us, Cartoon Network. I'm humbled. They're desperate. They're absolutely desperate.
I've seen toddlers draw better than those figures.
Yeah.
Really hurts
over and over again.
What really hurts for Cartoon Network is anyone watching this looks at this artwork and then they look at that Lion-O and they go,
that's what we want.
Exactly.
We want that Lion-O.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's called the Cal Art style. It's a studio or whatever. It's a style, and they're doing it with all these cartoons now because it's so quick and fast, and they just make a big B, and that's the face, and they just reduce everybody to these ridiculous, as you said, toddler-esque drawings. It's not cool. It's not hip. It's not on avant-garde or anything like that. It's ridiculous. It's lazy. The laziness shows through.
It looks like parody is what it is.
Yeah.
What made things like the Thundercats and He-Man and all the shows in that vein so good was that it appealed to everyone, to kids, to teens, to adults who enjoyed that kind of a genre. Mm-hmm. That appeals. A big no.
There is something else I think that's missing from any time they try to reboot something like He-Man or Thundercats or whatever, G.I. Joe. You got to remember, as cynical as it may seem, they were basically meant to be promoting toys. They were like functioning commercials. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. The two kind of go together. You'd watch the cartoon, you'd buy the toys, you'd play with the toys, recreating the stories or creating your own stories from, the show. And unfortunately now, there is no longer a connection between these things. They're not putting out good enough stories that kids want to go and buy the toys to recreate those stories and make their own, It's like, oh, look, there's, those toys from that cartoon that I watch when I sit and eat lunch and fall asleep, I know, seriously. I mean, that's how a lot of kids watch this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I remember watching the Thundercats and thinking Chitara was hot as hell.
Oh, heck yeah.
And now
Now
look
she's
at
a woman studies
this.
student. Yeah.
That's something I wipe off my shoe.
Al, have you seen the what was it, Robot Chicken sketch about the Thundercats?
No, maybe, I don't know.
I'll have to share it with you later. It goes right along.
I've seen stuff. I just don't know if I've seen the one you are particularly thinking of.
Yeah.
So they did this. They did this on the Teen Titans Go too, because they're trying. First of all, Teen Titans Go is a train wreck itself, and the fact that it's still utter garbage. It took the wonderful Teen Titans series that Cartoon Network had, and then traded that in for this nonsense is ridiculous. And they try to do these little in jokes on Teen Titans Go. They've done the Young Justice meets the Teen Titans Go. And they tried to make it. They tried to mock people who were pissed off about Young Justice being canceled. Instead, they gave us Teen Titans Go instead, because that's basically what they did, because they wanted to make sure that boys were interested in the boys stuff and girls. It was dumb. So they did this whole thing where they're mocking the fans who didn't like it by saying it's so silly and not serious. And they so the Teen Titans Go tried to be no, we need to be serious. So that's Robin coming back and trying to be serious like the Young Justice. They do this kind of crap over and over where they just mock anybody who doesn't like it. I haven't looked at the ratings. I don't know how Teen Titans Go stays on the air. I can only imagine it's the sort of like the fake, to coin a term, that fake geek girl kind of thing, which like, oh, it's so cute. I like the chibi, the crap that people just. I don't know who's appealed. Who finds Teen Titans Go appealing? I have no idea. It's ridiculous, but that's the only thing I can think of. I don't know. But maybe they're trying to go for their audience. They're trying to say, hey, maybe if we can get some of the Teen Titans audience to think this is cute. But I don't even think by the cuteness standards here, like, let's say you are one of those people, you're like, oh, the big eyes and the cutesy with the big heads. This is a whole different thing than this garbage dumpster fire train wreck away here. I mean, that's like,
that's fun. Yeah, I get you to say the Teen Titans there is fine art compared to the Thundercats there.
Exactly. It really is. I know you've got to have an opinion on this, fan man.
Oh God, yeah. I saw it during the week, and I thought, is this just like a meme? Like, did somebody make this? And then I realized, no, this was actually in that show. My daughters used to put on Teen Titans Go, and the way that I dissuaded them from doing that was went on one of my classic rants that I'm well known for, and the rant was, of course, child friendly. But I gave them the wonderful history, very briefly and passionately, of who the Titans are, and the original Titans, and Teen Titans, and then the new Teen Titans, and said this is a parody and it's garbage and it's stupid. And I think so that I would never do that again. They just stopped watching it. They just go back to SpongeBob now, which I don't care for SpongeBob either. It just kind of feels like somebody stabbing me in the ears with an ice pick. But it's not raping iconic characters, so I don't mind it as much. I wanted to talk about something Troy said. The thing was, back in the early 80s with all of these TV shows, Transformers, I think was not the only one, but they had a practice that became one of the standards for a lot of these animated shows that did have a toy line. And that was that the toy company actually would go to Marvel Comics. In most of these cases, they went to Marvel and they asked their writers to develop a story based on the figures or designs, or even if they had the animation, they would show them images of that. Famously, Transformers, the main character, some of the names in that series came from the great Denny O'Neil. Denny O'Neil named Optimus Prime.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, and it was Marvel Comics writers that not only helped with some of the other character names, but actually gave the toys, just seeing the toys, which existed as parts of other lines, they gave the toys names. They came up with Cybertron. They came up with the whole Decepticon Autobot war background for the toys, and that's the concept, was the story that they sold, because the toys had pre-existed as part of other lines that didn't have a story. And so when that succeeded, now Masters of the Universe preceded it, but you had guys like Bruce Timm working on that, Paul Dini worked on that, JMS worked on that, and so you had quality writers on these shows who, that Masters of the Universe documentary that's on Netflix talks about this, that they felt an obligation to, knowing that they had the audience that they did, they had an obligation to actually make these shows about something moral, and so it wasn't. Yes, it did. GI Joe and I think and Transformers became really guilty of this more than any other series. They did eventually become about, oh, let's move these characters out because we need to sell the new characters who are going to be on the shelves this fall. And that's where Transformers the movie happened, which was a nightmare. I really love it, but killing Optimus as a 10-year-old, I mean, that was just
oh, that's yeah.
Oh, God. And so, but even GI Joe started really a few months before the animated series was ever out, maybe a year, as a comic written by Larry Hama from Marvel Comics. So there was always that story there. There was always a moral at the end of the G.I. Joe, the He-Man, Transformers. You had these characters that were very influential on young people watching them. So to see that, and Thundercats as well. I don't know if Marvel writers worked on that. This is, of course, back when real good, wonderful storytellers worked at Marvel as opposed to the joke it is now. But I don't know who worked on Thundercats, but I remember watching it as a kid, and I thought this is like He-Man, and it's like Transformers, and it's like G.I. Joe, because this is that same kind of storytelling. And I didn't think of it in those terms as a kid, but certainly I felt it was the same. And I love the toys. I had all the toys. So I have hated and loathed all of this since it came out day one. And, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Come up with something new. But it's also like what Blumhouse has done. And they've admitted, Jason Blum's admitted, we take the existing names. We don't care about what they once meant, and we exploit them because they're recognizable. And so to see this now, it's a kind of another desperate cry. Like, we know we're irrelevant. Hey, look at us. We're not as irrelevant as we want to be. Oh, turns out you're even more irrelevant now. You're up, down on being irrelevant. And I just think it's sad, and I can't wait for the show to end. I heard that the She-Ra series, so-called, is going to be ending after next season, right? It's only going to have 5 seasons. Yeah, so I just can't believe that people are still watching this, and that this. Why is Teen Titans still on? Like you guys are saying, who in the hell's watching this? Yes, my girls were watching it, but that's only because there's nothing else on. Mm-hmm. I think they only watched it, and they, one thing they actually said about it that I have watched it occasionally and thought, okay, I can see how that's catchy. Is the music is really good. Sometimes they have a musical number, and I'm like, oh, I can see how that would get a kid's attention, but there are no stories. There's no. It's all just fart and booger jokes, and now it's this. Like, now we're going to go and show how woke we are, and double down, and I just hope for nothing but failure and horrible outcomes for these shows and the people working on them. I hope they go work somewhere else, doing something else, and Anyway, okay, I'm a horrible person for saying that, but how I feel.
I want to wrap this portion up by showing Point Man Comics fixed it. He fixed it. So it's, I, Lion-O, you've shown me Thundercats Roar. There is nothing about this whole scenario that doesn't make me so disgusted I want to violently vomit out my own internal organs. I despise you both so intensely that I can't tell if my vision is blurry from my near-death experience or from my unforgiving rage. If allowed, once I am back to full health, I will gut you with an honest-to-God smile on my face and then proceed to paint the home I build with your bodies with your very blood.
That's awesome.
Oh man, that's great.
Especially good with the look at it.
I know the face.